You know that feeling when you see a group of people and you think, wow, they're all so good looking. But then you kind of look at each person one by one and the magic just isn't quite there? Well, I'm here to tell you, you are not going crazy. That is a real thing. It's a fascinating little trick our brain plays on us, and it has a name you've probably heard before, the cheerleader effect.
And yeah, if that name rings a bell, it's probably because of this guy. The term was actually made famous by Barney Stinson on How I Met Your Mother way back in 2008. I mean, it was a classic sitcom gag, right? He points out this group of women who look amazing all together, but, well, not so much when you see them individually. It was just a funny throwaway line.
Or was it? I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? Was this just a joke, or did a sitcom character actually stumble upon a real psychological phenomenon? Is there any real science behind this? Well, that's exactly what we're going to find out.
So yeah, our story here doesn't start in some fancy research lab. It starts on a TV set. And that's exactly how this cognitive bias got its incredibly catchy name.
Okay, so let's get a formal definition down. The cheerleader effect, or, the more scientific-sounding group attractiveness effect, is basically this. It's our brain's weird tendency to see individuals as more attractive when they're in a group than when they're all by themselves.
And the name makes perfect sense, right? I mean, think about a cheerleading squad. The whole group together creates this really powerful, striking impression. It's often way more impressive than any one person might be on their own. It's all about that group dynamic, the power of the ensemble.
All right, so we've got a funny idea from a sitcom. But how in the world do you take a joke and turn it into something you can actually prove with science? Let's take a look at how researchers put this whole theory to the test.
So get this, it took about 5 years after that episode aired, but in 2013, two researchers, Drew Walker and Edward Vall, decided, hey, let's actually see if this is real. They're the ones who literally took this idea from a TV show bar and brought it into a proper psychology lab.
And the experiment they came up with was actually super clever and really simple. Okay, so here's what they did. They'd show people a group photo, then they'd show them a picture of just one person from that group totally isolated. And all the participants had to do was rate how attractive that person was in both pictures. Simple as that.
So what did they find? Well, it turns out it wasn't just a one-time fluke. They ran this experiment 5 separate times. We're talking different faces, different groups, men, women, and every single time the result was surprisingly consistent. Turns out, on average, people were rated as 2% more attractive when they were part of the group. Now, I know what you're thinking. 2%? That doesn't sound like a lot. But trust me, in the world of psychology, finding a consistent, measurable effect like that over and over again, that is a huge deal. The cheerleader effect was no longer a joke. It was officially a real, measurable thing.
Okay, so we've established that it's real. It happens. But why does it happen? I mean, what is going on in our brains to create this weird little illusion? This, my friends, is where things get really cool.
Yeah, this is the million-dollar question, right? The person is the exact same person. So why does just having other people around them in a photo change how we see them? And so consistently, too.
Well, scientists have basically landed on 3 main theories. The first is called hierarchical encoding. This is the idea that your brain just mashes all the faces together and creates one single average face. The second theory is selective attention. This one's pretty simple. Our eyes just naturally go to the most attractive people in the group, and that kind of lifts the average for everyone else. And the third is social inference. Basically, we see someone in a group and think, oh, they must be friendly and likable, and we find those traits attractive. Now, all 3 of those make some sense, right? But the one that's really the front runner, the one the original researchers, Walker and Vall, really leaned into, is that first one, hierarchical encoding. Okay, let's break that down because it's pretty wild. First, your brain does something called ensemble coding. It looks at all the faces in the group and, without you even realizing it, it creates a single blended average face. Then, and this is the key part, your brain starts to see each individual person as looking a little more like that averaged out face. And here's the final piece of the puzzle. For whatever reason, humans tend to find average or prototypical faces more attractive. So by being visually pulled toward this more attractive average, everybody in the group gets a little attractiveness boost. It's kind of wild. But of course, it's never that simple, especially in psychology. This isn't some magic rule that works every single time. There are actually some very specific situations where the whole illusion just kind of breaks down.
So, what are the limits? Well, for one, there might be cultural differences. A follow-up study in Japan in 2015 couldn't replicate the effect at all.
The makeup of the group also really matters. The effect seems to work best when you've got a mix of different levels of attractiveness. But, and this is a big one, if someone is, well, the least attractive person in the group, this can actually backfire and make them seem even less attractive by comparison. And get this, some research even suggests this is more of a trick of memory. It happens after you look away, not while you're actually looking.
Okay, so we've got the theory from a sitcom, we've got the science, we've got the exceptions to the rule, but what does this actually mean for us in the real world? Let's talk about how this little brain glitch shows up in our everyday lives.
And once you know about it, you start seeing it everywhere. I mean, think about dating apps. It's practically rule number 1 to include a good group photo, right? Marketers totally use this too, with product bundles. A bunch of things packaged together just seems like a better deal. And of course, social media is the perfect example. We're all carefully crafting this image of ourselves, surrounded by our awesome friends. And here's the kind of ruthless but fascinating little tip that came out of one study. It basically suggested that if you really want to use this to your advantage, well, let's just say being surrounded by less attractive friends could help. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. It's a little cynical, for sure, but it lines up with that whole science of averaging and contrast we were just talking about. So that leads us with one final thought, right? Knowing all this, that our brains are constantly, automatically averaging us out with the people we're with, it really makes you think. The next time you're scrolling through your camera roll, trying to pick the perfect shot to post, you might have a whole new strategy. So I'll just leave you with this question. Who's going to be in your next profile picture?